almost here for the Indianapolis Colts. So what storylines are going to dominate the headlines? Which camp battles stick out the most? And which ones do you, the fans, want to see the most? Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle, as always, presented by Indianapolis Colts on SI.com. My name is Drake Wally, co-deputy editor for the site and co-host of this podcast. And, of course, I'm joined by none other than the one and only Noah Gebert, analyst for the site and fellow co-host of this podcast. Noah, we finally will have something to talk about that's real. In a couple of days.
Yeah.
It's a very long off season in the NFL. But you know, a lot of times people can just say, hey, this is a training camp. This is the off season. For the Indianapolis Colts, this is so much more than just an off season. Mm-hmm. And there's a few storylines that are really just dominating nationally across the whole country. So how are you doing, man? And what do you think about training camp finally being here in 2 days?
I'm excited, man. Excited to stop trying to come up with topics and actually be able to report and talk about the things that are actually going on, things that we're seeing, things that we're hearing. A lot of videos going to come out. I know you're going to be down there for training camp, getting that exclusive access that you've got over there. So we'll be getting the inside scoop from you for a couple of days down there at training camp. Yeah, I'm excited to actually talk about something. And we're going into you mentioned this huge training camp where you had to come out and the owner has to mention or issue a statement at the end of the year saying, hey, we're keeping our guys, we're not moving on. We know if you have to issue a statement about that, then you're probably in some hot water already. There's a lot of expectations, a lot of things that this regime needs to overcome this upcoming season. It's all going to get started here in training camp when they report here in a day or two.
Yeah, and this is such an exciting time. Every year it is, but this one in particular, there's so much on the line, and we'll get into all of the prominent ones, you know. But I know that, and in fact, I'm trying to find it right now because this is something I do need to mention. Is that Carly Ursay? So she basically came out and she said notable quotes from JJ Stankovich, who is, you know, the Colts writer. He's actually the designated writer. She said, quote, "I don't like talking about winning. I like talking about being the best." She also said on Anthony Richardson, "Where he is in his career and his deal as a rookie, we still have time. He still has time to prove it." That is an owner, Noah, that is basically, I mean, obviously all three sisters are in ownership, but Carly's the figurehead, if you want to call her that. And, you know, what is that? I mean, the first quote really stands out more than the Richardson one because everybody knows that. But she's basically saying, you know, we're here to be the best. That tells me it's playoffs, AFC South championship, or there's going to be changes.
Yeah, I think, that's just another measure of what sounds like it's going to be some accountability from the top, which is good to see. Who knows how safe Chris Ballard felt these past couple seasons, but I think he should feel a little less safe this season, even though he's worked closely with Carly, with the other Ursay sisters in the past. I mean, they've got to put their stamp on things. They've got to make changes. The onus is on them if they go into year 9 and things are the same. Yeah, things are going to have to change. So good to hear that quote. That one about Anthony Richardson, I think you nailed it. It's pretty obvious. They're going to say he still has time. You can't come out before the season with one of the guys who's battling for your starting quarterback spot and say we're out on him. That would do nobody any favors, even if they do maybe feel like they're leaning that way internally. So just good to see. I don't know. It's refreshing to see the new ownership come out and be vocal, put out the statement before training camp, and just excited to get things going.
Yeah, and you know, one more thing is this training camp, all eyes are going to be on one thing, and we'll talk about that, but this is such a different team than it was last year. You've got new acquisitions, you've got new coaches, you've got a different feel in the building. Mm-hmm. So I think it's going to be a very interesting training camp to follow. So we got a couple guys in here in the chat. Daniel, Tony, thank you so much, guys, for joining. Sean, as always, legend for joining in here. And we'll go ahead and address this. Already a crazy AR question since he first hurt his throwing shoulder back in 2018. Will his surgically repaired area be a chronic condition? That is up for debate, man. Yeah. The Colts, he's ready for training camp. He's ready to go. He's got a lot of catching up to do. He's got a lot to prove. But Noah, I will say that despite the fact it was just soreness, it was in that surgically repaired
Yeah.
shoulder that he had an AC joint sprain in. And honestly, that's not. I didn't think it was good then, and
Yeah.
I'm just hoping that it's better now, because if it's not, that's your throwing shoulder, man.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, that's absolutely not good news. The absolute worst place you can have an issue, especially after the surgery. Hopefully it's just he was working a little bit too hard post surgery and had a little bit of a flare up, and that can ease back. But I mean, even without the shoulder injury, if we believe that that's taken care of, that's done and dusted. I mean, he's dealt with other injuries in other parts of his body throughout his NFL career. And you just have to hope he stays healthy everywhere. You're not just worried about the shoulder when it comes to Anthony Richardson, which is an issue. You're dealing with that. The back issues that he's had, the concussion issues he's had in the past. He's got a ton of things that he's got to watch out for, and keeping that body healthy and keeping him on the field before he can think about maintaining a starting quarterback job.
yeah, and that's actually, Daniel, that's great that you mentioned that, because we're just going to jump right into it. So we've got several different camp battles here we're going to talk about, but we're going to get them arguably the most exciting and absolutely tiring one over with. I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. This has dominated everything. It's going to dominate everything, and get ready for it to potentially even spill into the offseason next year.
Yep.
And that is the QB1 battle between Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. So because we're talking about battles, we won't skip over this one quickly. For those who somehow don't know what's been happening, Anthony Richardson was awful last season. And as an analyst and as a writer, I'm really not trying to be too harsh here, Noah, but I'm being honest when I say that it might have been the worst season I've seen from a quarterback. He just really didn't look like he was in sync. He looked confused. He looked like he didn't have enough experience. You tap out of a game. I understand that you threw a guy off of you that's 300 pounds. I still can't fathom how he thought in his head that was acceptable. So there's just a lot of questions about him. They bring in Daniel Jones. You initially think it's for competition. I think it's for that and an insurance policy.
Yeah.
And now you're starting to hear Daniel Jones from guys who are very plugged in, like the Athletics' James Boyd, one of the best in the business. He said that he feel, that from what he knows, Daniel Jones has a significant lead. And honestly, Noah, I'm not really that surprised. So tell me a little bit about your thoughts on this position battle, because it really is going to shape how this team performs. Because you can have all the talent in the world. You can have the greatest show on turf type talent offensively. If your quarterback situation is bungled, none of it really matters.
Yeah. We'll just get down to the meat of the conversation there. I mean, we were talking about position battles. You can't skip over quarterback one. I don't even think we could save this one for last year on this episode, because I think when the title is position battles and you're talking about the most important position in sports, literally everybody watching is just going to be waiting to hearing about quarterback and not even focusing on anything else we'll say. So we'll get this out of the way right off the bat here with quarterback one. And I think it's an interesting battle, and I think that's exciting. You've got two different guys that I think you could find ways to be excited about, but also I think you're sitting in the reality of the situation that no matter who wins, you might be dealing with the 25th to 30th best quarterback in the NFL, regardless of who your starter ends up being, which I think is a rough situation to be in. You've got upside with Anthony Richardson and what he might be able to become, and Daniel Jones if he goes back to his one good year in that form and that he had in New York. But I mean, I think those are kind of long shots at this point. I know Daniel Jones is dealing with a better supporting cast than he had in New York, so you have a little bit of hope that he can turn things around. His career is going to look a little bit different in this second stint here with a new team. But man, yeah, you're batting, I think, under 500 with both these guys. You got less than a 50-50 shot of either of these guys turning out to be the guy that you want to deal with for the future. So right now, yeah, this training camp battle is just all about finding out at this point who you're comfortable with as your starter in week one. And I think that it does make sense that Daniel Jones is emerging as that guy who's had more of an NFL career, a little bit more experience, a little bit more polish, can probably move the offense a little bit more consistently, especially when Anthony Richardson this summer has missed some time in those OTAs with that shoulder injury. Gives Daniel Jones a chance to get out there and really show what he can do and get his first crack to impress the coaching staff. I think when you've in that situation, when you're not playing actual football and you're playing 7-on-7 and you're playing non-contact 11-on-11, you're running routes and just drills, I think Daniel Jones has that upper hand because while he's a good athlete, he's going to be able to provide some things in the run game for you. He's not going to be that physical presence that Anthony Richardson is. He's not going to extend plays the ways that Anthony Richardson does. So yeah, I think when the gloves come off and we're seeing these joint practices and we're seeing actual preseason games, that's when we're really going to get to the meat and potatoes of who's going to be the winner in this QB battle.
Yeah, there's just, it's not that it's fun football during the off season or
Yeah.
during, training camp, but I mean, there was people saying, well, Daniel Jones, he dominated the drills, in OTAs and minicamp. It's like, dude, all he's wearing is a freaking helmet.
Yep.
That's it. Like, of course, you're going to look good. And Daniel Jones, ladies and gentlemen, has typically looked fantastic during the offseason workouts, even when he was with the G-Men. So this one, though, the thing about each guy, so Daniel Jones, it's really hard to know what you're going to get because by all accounts, he just was not good in New York. But there's context that has to be thrown in here. They didn't have much of an offensive line. In 69 starts, dude got sacked 208 times, which part of that's on him. But when there's that much, 3 sacks a game for your career, when it's that heavy, it's not just the quarterback holding onto the ball, man. And, his best receivers in that season where they went to the playoffs, get ready, baby. It's none other than the legendary NFL future Hall of Famers, Darius Slayton and Richie James. Okay, those were his top wide receivers that year. And there just wasn't much for him to work with in New York. They invested a lot in Barkley, and they invested a lot on that defensive side. So now you're giving him a play caller who's going to try to fit his strengths. You're giving him Jonathan Taylor, and is that Saquon Barkley? No, but it's pretty damn close. And then you're talking about Pittman, Downs, Warren, if he can make a rookie jump immediately. Then you're talking about a deep threat like Alec Pierce that's going to open up what Jones likes to do, and that's the intermediate and short game. So honestly, Jones has a golden chance here to work with the best he's ever seen. And then you flip it over to Richardson. He's shown that he hasn't been able to put it together yet. Is there a chance, guys, that he's going to do it? Me and Noah aren't on this show, and we haven't been on this show saying there's no hope for this kid. But I will throw in this, and I want you to tell me what you think about this, Noah. Daniel Jones had a choice to go to the Minnesota Vikings. Now, he would have competed with J.J. McCarthy, who hasn't played a single down in the NFL, and he was hurt all of last season. But instead, he chose the uber athletic, freak quarterback with all these traits that has this insane ceiling that he could still hit. Jones felt that the guy who has the experience and all the upside was easier to beat than the guy who hasn't played a single down in the NFL. What are your thoughts on that? Because I don't think people realize how big that is, that Jones saw the Colts as a better opportunity to start.
Yeah, I think there's probably 2 things that went into that decision there with Daniel Jones. I mean, 3 if you're counting money, and maybe the offer from the Indianapolis Colts was a little bit better. But if you're just talking about purely from a competition standpoint, do you want to go up against J.J. McCarthy or Anthony Richardson? The thing working against Anthony Richardson, you mentioned, he has NFL experience while J.J. McCarthy doesn't, but maybe that's not a good thing here in the case of Anthony Richardson because the experience that he's put out there on the field has shown a lot of cracks in the way that he manages an offense. So I think that just in terms of the play that he's on that you've seen on the field from Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones should feel a little bit confident that he can go out there and at least compete with that, if not outright beat him out for the starting job. And then a second thing, I think you have the pressure over there to play the young guy in Minnesota that you don't necessarily have here in Indianapolis, where you've got, Chris Ballard, Shane Steichen, they went all in on Anthony Richardson, but at the end of the day, they need wins, and they need wins soon. They need wins this season, so they're going to go with whichever guy's going to give them the best chance at that, whether that's Richardson or whether that's Jones. When you're over there in Minnesota and you've got a high draft pick like J.J. McCarthy, who hasn't played a snap, fans are going to be clamoring for J.J. McCarthy. The coaches are going to want to see him. The GM's going to want to see him. But we've seen Anthony Richardson, and to be frank, they haven't been too pleased with what they've seen. That's so much so that they were willing to bench him at a point last season. So yeah, I mean, if a guy gets benched one time, he's likely to get benched again. Is kind of how it goes.
Yeah, and we'll put a bow on it with this. Okay, the Colts want Richardson to work out. All right, they really do, but they can't wait anymore. They really can't. It's at the end of the line. Steichen's job is on the line. Ballard's job is on the line. Probably multiple. I'm sure quarterback coach Cam Turner, offensive coordinator JBC, Jim Bob Cooter, they're all like, they
Mhm.
got to win. So, and plus that quote from Carly Ursay told that you read between the lines, that basically says, go out there and win or there's going to be changes. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so we'll go ahead and move on here to something that's not quarterback driven. And we know that last year, Noah, Jonathan Taylor, he averaged over 20 carries a game, which in the NFL, that's just so much, especially
Yep.
given that there's not many of those bell cow backs. Um, he had Trey Sermon and Tyler Goodson. They really didn't do much. Just look at nothing more than the last 5 games. I really encourage people to go look at his stats. Jonathan Taylor's in the last 5 games, just an outrageous amount of usage. But we're looking at running back 2 here. Khalil Herbert and Giddens. They sign Herbert. They draft Giddens. What are your thoughts right out of the gate when you see this position battle? Because this is going to be a crucial one because Jonathan Taylor, knock on wood, he doesn't have any setbacks.
Yeah.
But Jonathan Taylor, 1, needs rest every now and again. And 2, he hasn't really, he's been hurt at times, and he even was last year.
Yeah, I think we've kind of hit this on a lot of episodes, and when we're talking about this running back 2 position, is that there's a clear-cut role for day one for running back 2, and that's assuming Jonathan Taylor's healthy and they're going to want to play him as much as they can. But I think mainly that's that third down scenario where you get in there, either you're passing the ball and you want your running back in there to be a solid pass protector, or you want him to be a solid receiving option out of the backfield. Jonathan Taylor doesn't provide either of those 2 things for you, despite how good of a runner and how great he is on first and second down and in short yardage situations. You want Jonathan Taylor in there, obviously. But in these third down situations, there's a clear role for somebody. I mean, they went with Trey Sermon last year in this role primarily to be a pass blocker, and when they needed to pass the ball, Tyler Goodson would pop in there. Because, they weren't rotating a ton just to get, like, rest off of him or take the tread off of his tires. You could tell by that stat line you were mentioning about Jonathan Taylor in the last 5 games where he's averaging 25 carries, whatever he was, over the last 5 weeks of the season. That running back, too, that they were employing last year was not out there to give rest to Jonathan Taylor as much as they were to just fill a role that Jonathan Taylor couldn't really provide. Where I think you've upped the talent level here in this competition for RB2, and that can go into it. While there is that clear-cut role for a third down back, I think these guys are good enough, both Herbert and Giddens, to be someone that you can feel good about rotating in there on first and second downs sometimes, maybe somewhere midway through the second quarter, give Jonathan Taylor a series or 2 off just to take some of that workload off of him and give some of these carries to these other guys. I think Giddens is somebody who can be really explosive. Herbert's shown reliability to be at least a consistent runner between the tackles and outside throughout his NFL career. But yeah, I mean, the one thing I mentioned, that third down role, and how great it would be to have a pass blocking specialist or a pass catching specialist, at least in Giddens' college career. He wasn't that, and in the NFL for Herbert, he wasn't that either. So you're hoping you see a leap in one of those 2 areas from one of those 2 guys. I think in that situation, you're probably more likely to see it from DJ Giddens, who was dealing with a wrist injury in college last year, which may have hampered his ability to pass protect, his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. Maybe when he's fully healthy, that looks a little bit better. And but yeah, you're still trusting a running back or a rookie running back, and I don't know how much you trust a rookie running back to pass protect. So it's going to be back and forth, and I think this is going to be a battle that goes on through training camp, but I also think it's going to continue throughout the season, and they're going to split those reps up pretty evenly.
Yeah, and it's really like I'm looking at it right here. So just to give people an idea, I'll even just reference the last 3 games of the season. Taylor had 29, 32, and 34 carries, and 34 carries was in a game that meant nothing. Okay, so like this is a dude that needs less. He really does need less because all that tread is really starting to wear thin. It's just a matter of time before the regression starts. Now, could that be 4 years from now? Sure. But regardless, you want to give a defense more to look at. And I think that guys like Herbert and guys like Giddens, they each bring something different. If you had to, I guess, pick somebody and kind of what their impact might be, whoever wins that RB2 role, which one do you have, and what do you think that the winner of this competition could accomplish in 2025?
Yeah, I know everybody's going to be excited about the rookie coming in. Obviously, that's the flashy thing, the new sexy pick that comes in. But I think when we get into week 1, it's probably going to be Khalil Herbert that's taking more snaps than DJ Giddens, alleviating that workload a little bit more than Giddens will, and you're going to kind of ease Giddens into the offense. But the Colts love DJ Giddens, and I think they're going to find ways to get him on the field early, and I think if he's productive with those snaps that he's getting early on in the season, he's going to find his way into a more prominent role. So yeah, just kind of how I imagine it playing out is they're going to get pretty even reps throughout preseason, throughout training camp. Herbert's going to be primarily that number 2 guy when we start the season, and then Giddens will probably find his way into a larger role as the season goes on.
Regardless, it'll be nice to see Jonathan Taylor actually get a little bit of a rotation going on back there. And actually, there is a comment I want to address here. Let me see here. Yeah, so Randy Johnson mentioned that Herbert is a chain mover. Giddens will be used more to fill in for JT, either because of injuries or JT tearing big chunks to give JT a breather. They want JT around 15 to 17 carries. I would say that they want him to have probably more like maybe sub 20. Jonathan Taylor is a volume-based running back, but here's the thing. 20, 21, 22 carries, that's fine. 32, 34, 29, that is just wow. Like, that's an absolutely astronomical amount of workload. And so, especially when you're factoring in that he's not running any routes, anything, he's just taking carries. Dude is not a route runner. He's not a pass catching back. Like, he needs less. So I would say that the Colts probably want him around that 20 carry range, because then you're just going to get the most out of him.
Yeah,
so,
I don't think you want to take the ball out of his hands too much, but you do obviously want to be mindful of how much you're using him and not get to those gross numbers that you were getting to at the end of last season. You mentioned, he is a volume-based running back, but I do think if you limit his touches to 15 or whatever, you're still going to be able to be at a rate where he can hit those explosive plays that he's capable of hitting in between the tackles. So I think it's just all going to be a balancing act throughout the entire season. And if he goes down for any amount of time and you've got Herbert and Giddens being your only 2 back there, I don't love that being your starting duo, but I love it a lot more than it being Trey Sermon and Tyler Goodson like it was last season.
Yeah, and one more thing, how much Jonathan Taylor is used and really just the all-around running back room, it will depend on how much confidence the Colts have that the quarterback who's starting can actually execute the offense. So that's going to be a big thing to watch. This next one, obviously they brought in Tyler Warren, right? So Tyler Warren, it's not official, but he's the tight end 1. Like, there's no doubt about it. Again, for those who aren't aware, last year, this was the worst tight end group in football. And if they weren't the worst, they were second to last to only the Denver Broncos, who had no answer. So this one is really about the backups. So they bring back Mo Alley-Cox on a 1-year deal. You still have Drew Ogletree. You still have Will Mallory. You still have, which I almost forgot he's even on the roster, but you do have Jelani Woods. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about this tight end room behind Tyler Warren, because you're going to be able to be in 11 personnel, but you do still need to have some quality rotational pieces at tight end, especially in a running-based offense when you're probably going to deploy some 2 tight end sets now and again.
Yeah, after Tyler Warren, you mentioned he's not for sure the starter, but I think we can pencil him in there, and we're on track for that to be the case by week 1 without a doubt. So you're really talking about these other guys. That tight end 2 spot, this could kind of be expanded into tight ends 2 through 4. Probably 3 of these guys are going to be making the roster and playing in some capacity. You just really kind of question how those roles are going to shake out. I think tight end 2 is really important, though, when you're talking about it and you're going into those 2 tight end sets, it's going to be Tyler Warren out there, obviously. I think your next guy that's going to be in there is going to be more of your blocking type of tight ends. That's going to be your Mo Alley-Cox, your Drew Ogletree, Sean McKeon, if he's out there. But I think it's mainly between Alley-Cox and Ogletree. And they're both going to play a role, I'm sure. I think Alley-Cox he's one of the better blocking tight ends in the NFL. And obviously, this group that you're talking about behind Tyler Warren is exactly the same as the group that we were talking about being the worst position group in terms of production in the NFL last season. But I think it's a lot like that conversation we have with Charvarius Ward in the cornerback room, where you throw Charvarius Ward in there and everyone gets bumped down a slot into a role that's a little bit you can. Like you're a little bit more satisfied with those players in those roles. I think it's the same with the tight end room. When you throw in a talent like Tyler Warren, who can kind of do it all and be your 3-down guy at tight end 1, everybody else who was playing on a peg higher than they probably should have been last season, or kind of bump back down into that complementary role that they should probably be in. And I think I feel a lot better about that with Allie Cox, with Ogletree, with Will Mallory. I think there's going to be mouths to feed there, and there's going to be some room to maneuver here. I think you're probably going to see more production from guys like Allie Cox and Ogletree because that attention's going to be on Warren and some of the other guys on the outside that are going to take some attention away from these tight ends. But yeah, primarily I think this is between Allie Cox, Ogletree. You kind of question if Jelani Woods can get into that mix and be capable as a blocker and as a receiving threat. It's really hard to project what you're going to get with Jelani Woods because we've seen so little of him in the NFL. You really don't know what type of players he's going to end up being. And then Will Mallory's probably going to have a role and be that pass catching tight end, but primarily in this tight end 2 battle, I don't think he's really up in the air for that.
Yeah, and Drew Ogletree has shown that he's kind of like diet Mo Alley Cox. Drew Ogletree is a good blocker, but man, he's really not done much as a pass catcher. And Will Mallory, I mean, I actually liked what I saw from him in his rookie season. It wasn't much,
yeah,
but I mean, absolutely blistering speed, fastest tight end in the 2023 draft. He's got a rare ability to be a tight end that is a vertical threat. So if he gets a step on you, you're really screwed. But the thing about Mallory is you just can't use him as a blocker.
Yeah.
He's really, really bad at it. And then, of course, there's Jelani Woods. And Jelani Woods, similar to Mallory, gave you a nice little taste of what he can do in his rookie season. But like Noah mentioned, like we've said a lot on the show, it really sucks for Jelani because he hasn't played in 2 straight seasons, hasn't been healthy. He hasn't been able to even suit up for the preseason, has just been, around, I guess. So out of all of these guys, which one do you think gets the axe if the Colts have to make a roster cut? Or better yet, a better question is, do you think they keep 3 tight ends? Or do you think they keep 4?
Yeah, I think that's a conversation you can actually have when you have a guy like Tyler Warren who can play all 3 downs that they're out there at tight end. 3 just feels a little too light for me. I think 4 is the most likely number that we land on. 5 would be ideal if you're trying to stockpile all this talent, but I don't think you have the luxury of being able to do that on other spots on the roster. So yeah, I think 4 is the number. So you're probably looking. I mean, we did our 53-man roster prediction a couple weeks ago where we had to make this difficult decision, and tight end was the one position on the team that I didn't have filled out before we started the episode because I was trying to wait and put off making my decision and procrastinating that a little bit because it's going to be a tough one where you've got Jelani Woods, Will Mallory, Drew Ogletree. I think Mo Alley Cox is going to be a lock to make the roster there. I think he's that tight end too. I think essentially is how this battle's going to start out. Tyler Warren's obviously a lock. And then if you've got 2 other spots, there's 3 guys that are kind of up in the air for that, where Will Mallory is kind of this probably the only guy that can do Tyler Warren type stuff as a move tight end and as a receiving threat. And then Ogletree and Jelani Woods like I mentioned, it's hard to tell what Jelani Woods is going to end up being, but it seems like their role should be kind of similar, Ogletree and Jelani Woods. And I think you just have to give the nod to Ogletree based off of what he's been able to provide you in the past that Jelani Woods just hasn't.
Yeah, and, given what they finally have in Tyler Warren, you're not really looking at any one of these guys that we just mentioned in this position battle to be otherworldly. They don't need to be they don't need to overachieve or do more than they've done. That's the good news. The bad news is one of them's probably on the way out. And if I had to vote, it really hurts me to say this because I remember I was so excited about Jelani Woods and I bought his jersey. But I think that he's really, even right now, no, I think he's the guy that's on the outside looking in, and God forbid if he gets dinged up again, man, he's done. You know what I mean? He's definitely done. So before we move on, just because he's a freak athlete, had a 10.0 RAS score, what do you think happens with Jelani Woods? Do you think he's done?
I think it's definitely an uphill battle for him. I think especially because it's Ogletree and Mo Alley Cox in front of him. You have to beat out one of those guys. It's hard to imagine him playing better than Will Mallory and they'll be like, okay, he can kind of be that backup Tyler Warren role. I'm not sure if that's going to be the case. Even though he is that freak athlete, maybe he can provide you something like that. Yeah, but Ogletree and Will Mallory, I think, have given this offensive staff some consistency, if not shock value and statistics and tons of production. At least they've been reliable and consistent. They've seemed pretty content keeping those guys on the field. So yeah, it's going to be an uphill battle when you're Jelani Woods and you haven't proven this offensive staff anything. You've been injured the 2 years that Shane Steichen's been there. Yeah, I mean it's all prove it time for Jelani Woods, and I think it's prove it to the coaching staff and also prove it to yourself that you can make it through a preseason and a training camp and stay healthy. I think that's the first battle that you have to win if you're Jelani Woods, is the battle with your own body to stay on the field.
Yeah, and the one and only CFO of the Horseshoe Huddle, Patrick Rye, threw down a super chat here. Thank you so much, Patrick, for joining. If the tight end room is Warren, Mo Alley Cox, Ogletree at the 53, do you think Mallory and or Jelani makes it through waivers to be a practice squad stash? And if they do the Colts snag one? I think if out of the two, I think that Will Mallory would be a guy that you would see actually picked up by another team, because there's so much there as far as speed and pass catching ability. He can also stretch a defense, which is going to open up more. I really think that I don't think a team is going to take a chance on Jelani if the Colts don't. And Jelani Woods' injury history is brutal for him. And I just don't know if a team's going to take a swing on that. And I really don't think the Colts would put him on the practice squad. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult question. Probably one they're going to have to at least talk about when they're making these decisions of the cuts of which one of these guys they can sneak through to the practice squad, if any. I know fans of every team like to think that the players they're moving on from are people that are going to be coveted throughout the league and they're going to be claimed immediately. We see a lot of talented players get cut that just don't get claimed, and then the ones that we don't really expect do get claims put in on them. I think Will Mallory is one of those guys who's hasn't had that injury history in the past and has been reliable. Is still only 2 years in the league, so I think he has some of that untapped potential really fresh in the minds of these GMs who were thinking about drafting him or scouting him at one point just 2 years ago. So I think he's probably the one that's most likely to get claimed if you put him through to waivers. And I think, he's very much a guy that they would want to have on the practice squad if he does make it through waivers. Jelani Woods, I feel like if he doesn't prove it here in training camp enough to get a roster spot, then is there a point in a practice squad stash at that point anymore? You feel like his talent should be enough to get him on the roster. If you feel like he's not there at this point, I'm not sure if it's ever going to get there at that point. It's not really worth something that you're going to develop on the practice squad.
And it's unfortunate. And I'll actually get real quick while we're on it to another comment from Patrick. If there was so much there for Mallory, though, wouldn't he have been much higher on the depth chart last year when they had no one in the room? Good point. Where I meant that there's a lot for Mallory is his speed and his threat as a pass catcher. One thing that really stops him dead in his tracks to get more playing time, there's actually two things. One is I think he can be moved off the line of scrimmage. I do think that he's just he's a very lean tight end that doesn't have a lot of bulk. And that leads to the other problem with him. He can't block. I mean, he literally isn't going to be out there for any blocking sets. And if he is, you've got a liability. So Mallory's he's got his work cut out for him to find a roster spot. That even means with the Colts. But I mean, it's just one of those things where I would say that there's enough there that you can mold a role player in your offense. But I do think that Will Mallory probably is incredibly limited because he does two things pretty well. And everything else that you need from a tight end, like blocking, like I would say, the inability to get moved off of your routes and moved off the line of scrimmage, I don't think that's there. And I think that's why you didn't really see him last season. But then again, the entire tight end room was an absolute mess. So. Yeah,
Patrick likes the word potential a lot. If we're talking about the potential of Will Mallory, I think we might have reached the ceiling for him. I don't know that we're expecting him to take a leap or really provide that much more despite the speed and the athleticism that he has. I think his ceiling at this point in the NFL is a rotational piece that can be a solid pass catching option if you need somebody to fill in for a couple snaps or fill in for an injury. I think that's kind of where Will Mallory is, and I think there's value in that. And keeping a guy, if you're keeping a fourth tight end in the roster, I feel like that's a valuable piece to have. So, but yeah, I think that's pretty much all that the Colts are probably expecting out of Will Mallory. I think that's probably how he's seen widely throughout the NFL. But yeah, like I said, that does have some value to the Colts and any team that would be willing to claim him.
Yeah, and Patrick, you're right. If anything, he could be more of a stats guy. Like if you ask him to go out there again in a run heavy offense, I mean, it might be a bad scheme fit for him as well. But we'll have to see, because I do think if you do keep 4 tight ends, I just cannot see Jelani Woods making that roster. But this next one here, it's technically a camp battle, right? Ryan Kelly gets signed by the Minnesota Vikings, 9 years with the team, 4 Pro Bowls, just an absolute pillar of the franchise. I fully expect him to be put into the Ring of Honor one day. But now you've got Tanner Bortolini, who does have to fight off Danny Pinter. Now, Tanner Bortolini last year, he played enough snaps that you can be confident somewhat that he can fill into the starting role. He looked serviceable. At times he looked great. There were also times he did look like a liability. You expect that from a rookie 4th rounder. Tell me a little bit about Tanner Bortolini. What did you see last year? And do you think that Danny Pinter has a realistic chance to topple Tanner Bortolini and put the youngster behind him on the depth chart?
I do think Danny Pinter has a realistic chance, maybe more realistic than what we had originally anticipated when we were going into this offseason, just based off the snaps that they were getting at OTAs. Danny Pinter was getting a significant portion of those snaps, and it seems like going into training camp, they're probably going to split those snaps up 50-50. With Tanner Bortolini, I mean, obviously, the younger guy, you probably want to get the nod. Just internally, you hope for that, for the health of your overall roster and things going forward. You hope that the cheap draft pick that's still on his rookie deal is the guy that wins the job. I think anyone would hope that, but I think also Danny Pinter's been there. He's done that. He has experience with the offensive line room. He has experience in this organization. He's done nothing to discount his ability or discount, like, the Colts. He's earned his starting shot. He's earned the shot to compete for the starting job, if nothing else, if he can't outright win it. I think a guy that's been a veteran for you and has been able to fill in the past is somebody that you're okay with splitting those reps with that young guy for. And really, I'm surprised that this was the biggest position battle along the offensive line was over there at center, because I don't think that's something that was initially on our radar. But there's every chance that a young player like Tanner Bortolini going into his second year has a little bit of a step back or doesn't show that sign of improvement, and you do feel a little bit more comfortable going with a guy like Pinter, who's been there around the organization and can fill in at center. So maybe they go for the stability and Danny Pinter over the upside. I mean, it's a similar situation to the quarterback battle, obviously at a much lesser scale, where I think they want Tanner Bortolini to win, they want Anthony Richardson to win, but if Daniel Jones or Danny Pinter come out and prove to be a guy that you feel a little bit more consistent about, and like you can get more wins early on in the season at least, then I don't think they're going to be afraid to make that decision to go with either of those guys.
Yeah, and I love that you brought that up, because this isn't just about the quarterback spot that the Colts are making big decisions on. They have jobs on the line here. Okay, so they can't with Bortolini, you saw honestly, I thought he looked good. Overall, I thought he looked good. He played enough snaps in relief for Ryan Kelly that I think that you can be pleased and confident. But I mean, Danny Pinter also played last season, and he wasn't really too bad. I mean, he wasn't the best in pass protection. That's really not his thing, but he does have that veteran experience. He knows the ropes. He's played guard too. He's been on this team for long enough that he understands the culture and what they're trying to accomplish here. But yeah, man, I mean, you can't wait on really anybody, and you can't say in Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard's positions, that guy has outrageous upside. Here in a couple of years, he could be a Pro Bowl talent.
Yeah.
You can't do that this year. You have to make the playoffs and probably win your division. So basically what you're saying is you think that if, let's say that in their minds, they're like, all right, Bortolini looks pretty good. He's probably going to be at the height of his powers, probably in year 3.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think they do? Do you think that they're going to go with Danny Pinter as long as he doesn't play like complete crap? Do you
Yeah, I
think
mean,
that
I
they're going
guess
to like lean on him?
yeah, I guess a lot of that depends on Danny Pinter, and that comes where he's earned the right to at least fight for the job. But at that point, it's not just like you're hoping on, or he's not just like waiting for Bortolini to fail so he can jump in. Also has to be performing at a good level in the preseason and training camp to be able to take that spot. So yeah, it's I think it's more of a fair battle than some of these other positions that we're probably throwing out there. But yeah, I still think likely we're going to see Bortolini out there. I know Bortolini was a fourth round pick, and everyone's talking about how if you take a guy in the fourth round at center, you hope he turns into your starter. I don't know if I mean fourth round pick is you could take that or leave it. Day 3 pick, those come and go all the time. And Danny Pitter was a fifth round pick. It's not like the investment in Tanner Bortolini was that much more than what you invested in Danny Pinter. So I don't know if he necessarily has the advantage there. It's just that this current regime is the one who drafted Danny Bortolini or Tanner Bortolini and not Danny Pinter. So maybe they favor him a little bit just in that regard. But yeah, I do think it is an open battle.
Yeah, and the upside is with Bortolini. The proven thing is with Pinter. And Pinter did play guard. He looked like crap, but when he plays center, he's actually a serviceable guy. He's not going to blow you away, but he's also not going to be disgustingly bad either. So I think that there is something to be said about this position battle, and I love that you put it on there because a lot of people aren't talking about it at all because Anthony Richardson versus Daniel Jones is just taking over everyone's mind. So this next one, I really like this. I think there's a chance that one of these guys, I think Zach Hicks said it on an episode of Locked On Colts, but I think that one of these guys actually has a chance to maybe even beat out Jalen Carlies. But we're going to talk about if Carlies and Franklin are your two prominent starters. Who takes over linebacker 3? Segun Alubi versus Joe Bacci. So Joe Bacci's brought in. He's a Lou Anarumo guy, right? Like this is a guy that Anarumo knows very well. We've seen Anarumo's influence primarily in the secondary with guys like Justin Wally, probably Corey Ballantyne, definitely Charvarius Ward, Cam Bynum. But, linebacker 3 is an interesting one because you haven't seen Franklin or Carlies this offseason. You will. But Franklin is the undisputed captain, right? He's the undisputed tackle leader. He's the thumper of the second level. You've got more of a question mark with Jalen Carlies, but this is huge because even though this defense primarily uses two guys, if one of those two goes down, you have to be really confident in your linebacker 3. So tell me a little bit about this battle here. Segun Alubi has shown not much, but he has started for the Colts. And honestly, when he started, he hasn't looked too bad at all.
Yeah, and then just kind of laying out the situation at linebacker where you have Zaire Franklin and Jalen Carlies. Obviously, I expect that to be the starting duo that you go into the season with, but also you're one play away at either of those spots from somebody going down and one of these guys needing to fill in. And if you've got your linebacker 2, you need somebody to fill in there. That's a role that's going to be taking probably 80% of the snaps on any given game day. So that's a huge role that somebody has to fill. Obviously, you want to fill that with somebody you have a lot of trust in, whether that's Zaire Franklin, especially if it's Zaire Franklin going down. You want somebody who's a little bit more proven there to go alongside of Jalen Carlies. So maybe that's where Joe Bacci gets the edge because he's been in the system. He's been around the league. Lou Anarumo guy, so maybe he trusts him a little bit more to take on that large workload that would come if you have to fill in for that linebacker spot. And then, Segun Alubi is a guy who's one of those athletic type of guys who's been there and done it in the past, probably more of an outside linebacker, not as much the Mike for Zaire Franklin. So maybe this is not a huge discussion in terms of linebacker 3 who fills in when you need somebody to fill in. Maybe it does kind of depend on who's the guy that needs to be filled in for. If it's Zaire Franklin that goes down for any bit of time, maybe they lean a little bit more on that experience of Joe Bacci. If it's Jalen Carlies, maybe they lean a little bit more on the athleticism of Segun Alubi. This is a battle that linebacker 3 is kind of the title, but I think the goalposts shift a little bit depending on what's needed out of that position when the time comes.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like Joe Bacci was out there, turning heads, with the Bengals and in his one season with the Eagles. I think that there's a lot to be said when a new coordinator, all right, comes into town and he brings a guy that he coached for 4 years, I think that there's something to be said about that relationship. That's why you heard endless people talking about, well, Colts need to trade for Trey Hendrickson. It's like, hey, if you want to give away everything you have, sure, go and get Trey Hendrickson. But this is the one guy that he's brought over from Cincinnati so far. Will there be more? We'll have to see. Patrick Rye throwing down again. This guy funds the freaking show. Hot take: the Colts have yet to sign the guy that will be linebacker 3. So I think it was Andrew Moore that said this on an episode of Bleacher Report. If they would have wanted to sign somebody, they probably would have done it by now. Now, is that the case? Maybe not, but the Colts are also, I know that they're in like dire mode and they've made moves and they've gone against the grain, especially Ballard. But I think that they actually are confident in what they have at depth right now. I think they like McGrone. I think they like Alubi. I think they like Bocce. What are your thoughts? Do you think that guy is yet to be signed?
Yeah, I like that you threw out the name Cameron McGrone. Jacob Phillips is another guy that could be in play there for some reps, at least in one of those depth spots, or fighting for a roster spot. But it's also entirely possible you go through training camp in the preseason and you're sitting there and like, these guys are not gonna cut it, and we need somebody else. Maybe Joe Bocce does have the experience with the system, and he's not making a ton of mental mistakes, but he just doesn't have it athletically to rely on out there on the defensive side of the ball for any extended amount of time. Shegun Alubi, for whatever reason, just isn't cutting it in a prominent role like that, and they can go out and sign a guy like I don't know who would even fit there as linebacker 3. Eric Kendricks is kind of too big of a name to be your linebacker 3. Kaliki Hudson's a name out there. Quan Alexander. There's some guys out there, I guess, that could fit in the system or could fit, or they could provide something at linebacker that the Colts don't have at this moment. But maybe linebacker 3 would be more likely on something like cut down day for an unexpected cut that we haven't seen yet. There's always a chance. Chris Ballard loves turning the roster. Most of the time these late additions are going to be back into the roster guys, your Sam Womack types that you're bringing in, and not necessarily somebody who's going to compete for significant snaps. So, I think, probably, you are right. That is a hot take, Patrick, but I don't think that's something you should discount.
Yeah, and I do like how Patrick threw a shameless plug into his favorite Colt of all time and how he's now with the Detroit Lions. When they didn't re-sign Grant Stewart, I knew the linebacker room was screwed. So, hey, like Grant Stewart, man, he literally had the most tackles in a single game of any Colt last year against the Dolphins. I mean, the guy has some talent, the Furbler. But at the end of the day, you need depth at linebacker, even if it's a 2 linebacker set. You lost EJ Speed. Jalen Carlisle did only play 10 games last year. He showed glimpses, but you can't just say this guy is the dude, especially when he's been hurt throughout the whole offseason. So we'll have to keep an eye on linebacker. That's going to be one that's going to definitely be like an underrated position to watch behind Franklin and Carlisle. That's if Carlisle even wins the job. So this next one, I really like that Noah put this on here. It's got his boy on there, but the Colts chose to draft a cornerback in a round where I really wanted them to take a defensive tackle, but the tape has shown that this could be a pretty impactful pick. And I know Chris Ballard was absolutely losing his mind talking about this guy. And that is Jalen Jones versus Justin Wally. And we will get plenty of comments from Patrick in the chat because he did not like this pick. But tell me a little bit about this, because Justin Wally, he looked good at Minnesota. He plays the ball well. He's able to create some good things for your defense. But I'm looking at Jalen Jones's numbers right now, man. 12 passes defended. He had a forced fumble. He had 2 picks in the same game of Caleb Williams. He had 100 tackles, man. And he missed some tackles, sure. But he had 100 tackles as a 7th rounder in his second year at age 22. Tell me a little bit about this battle, because honestly, man, maybe you've seen what you've seen from Jalen Jones, but man, if 2024's version of Jalen Jones is the best you can get, I don't know if that's really that bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Jones's career arc has kind of taken off where you were like 7th round pick, don't expect a lot. Then he goes out and he plays well, and you're like, okay, he's a little bit more valuable than what we spent on him, a 7th round pick. I think you're to the point in his career now where you're just like, I think he's a good cornerback. Like you can actually have that conversation without bringing up his draft stock or anything that's happened in the past, and just be like, okay, I think
Sure.
he's just a solid outside corner to have on a team. So I think this is just kind of at the tail end of the episode, one of the last ones we're bringing up, because I don't necessarily think it's as big of a battle as some of these other ones. But I still think it would probably be irresponsible if we didn't keep tabs on it a little bit because of how highly they're talking about Justin Wally, and how Jalen Jones, a guy that's been productive for you as a starter, and you felt pretty good about being your outside guy at corner. He's just frankly a guy who didn't come in with Lou Anarumo. He was inherited by Lou Anarumo, while Justin Wally was the guy that he let Anarumo hand selected. So you're always going to look out for, I don't know, some preferential treatment if you're thinking that way. Maybe they just like Justin Wally's speed or his high-end speed a little bit more, and you trust that on the back end. Me personally, I would lean on that experience of Jalen Jones. You mentioned maybe we've seen what we're going to see out of Jalen Jones, but maybe that's not the worst thing. I actually think, I feel like I say that a lot about a lot of players, is what we've seen is probably what we should expect to get. I don't know. Jalen Jones is 22 years old and has been improving since he's been in the league. I think there's a very good chance that he takes another step up, and he's definitely a guy that's going to run, that could run away with this position and be the unquestioned outside corner outside of Charvarius Ward. But yeah, I think it's worth monitoring that, because you never know how he's going to adapt to this new scheme. You never know how Lou Anarumo and this new defensive back coaching staff is going to favor a guy like Justin Wally, a guy that they hand selected. So it's definitely a battle, but one I expect Jalen Jones to come away with.
Yeah, and Charvarius Ward, I'm glad you brought that up, because he can be considered your top outside corner, but this is a dude. I'll use the Miami Dolphins game that opens the season as an example. He is going to be tasked with following every team's wide receiver one. Those guys aren't just going to be on the outside. A guy like Tyreek Hill is going to be in the slot. He's going to be on the outside. He's going to be moved to the opposite end of the field. Ward is going to be your cornerback one. But Jalen Jones right now is until Ward shows that he is a lockdown corner on the outside, Jalen Jones is your top outside corner right now. And with the ambiguity that is just hanging over Juju Brentz's head right now, Jalen Jones, man, I know Charvarius Ward, when he was signed, he elevated that room immediately. He immediately bumped everyone else back, like you said. But what cornerback outside of Kenny Moore is the most proven?
Yeah.
It's Jalen Jones. It's not Sam Womack, who had a stint. It's not, Corey Ballantyne, who's going to be more of your special teams guy. It's Jalen Jones. So I think that I love what you said, that you might still have something to improve on and see here from Jones. I won't lie. You go from he played all 17 games as rookie year, started 10, 5 passes defended to 12. You have no fumbles forced, you get a fumble forced. No picks, you have 2. 44 tackles, you have 100. 33 on his own, 66 on his own. I mean, the guy really did have a massive year 2 jump. So, and this is without Juju Brents on the field. This is no Charvarius Ward either. Okay, so this guy was basically handling the outside duties. So, Justin Wally, though, it's yet to be seen what he's going to do. I think he's probably going to be more of Kenny Moore's backup. Yeah. But Patrick Rye, there's 2 comments that I have to highlight here. The first one's pretty straightforward. The second one's actually kind of funny in a dark way. Justin Wally has to end up on a Kenny Moore level to convince me it was okay to pass on guys like Dylan Fairchild, Jamari Caldwell, Ty Robinson, CJ West, etc. I wanted CJ West. Okay, I'm confident that if the Colts really thought he was a 3rd-round pick, that there's something that no one else is seeing. Okay, it's the same thing with Matt Gay getting cut, and they lean on Spencer Schrader. You're thinking on the outside looking in, what the hell are they doing? Maybe there's something there. And then this other one, Patrick, I mean, I have to highlight this because it's ridiculous, and it does go back to the linebacker position. But honestly, the day Stewart had his welcome to Detroit presser, it was worse for me than when my grandma died utter devastation. Patrick, you are an absolute freaking menace, and we love having you in the chat. You're a clown, and I love it. But yeah, so this is going to be a big season for Jalen Jones. It's going to be a big season for Justin Wally, but no one's going to have a bigger season than Juju Brents. He's pretty much got to prove that he's worth keeping on the roster at this point. Yeah. So this last one here, it's really a camp battle because you don't entirely know what you're getting yet. Spencer Schrader versus Max Trujillo. So this one is interesting because I do got to go back to this. Matt Gay, all right, this is something I found out, Noah. So I'm going to go ahead and look it up here, but I'll look it up while you answer this question. What was just your initial reaction when they let go of Matt Gay? I wrote the article that broke the news for Horseshoe Huddle for Indianapolis Colts on SI. I was writing it the whole time, and I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I think from the outside, if you're not a Colts fan, you haven't been covering the Colts for as long as you have, Drake, you're looking at it and you're like, that's not crazy. You cut a kicker and you save a couple million. That makes a lot of sense.
Highest paid in history?
Yeah. Yeah, but then you go back to just Chris Ballard's past and realize he doesn't make those kind of moves. It doesn't move on from guys like that. And really with everything else that's been up in the air, maybe you kind of want to hold on to a kicker who's been 100% under 50 last season. Maybe that's somebody you want to keep on the roster, despite the fact that maybe you're paying him $1 or $2 million over what you should probably be paying a guy like that. Just surprising that they did it. Not surprising that it could happen because of the situation of that it was in, but surprising that they pulled the trigger, and especially surprising that they pulled the trigger with only Spencer Schrader to fall back on, which means they really have to believe in a guy like Spencer Schrader here. Spencer Schrader and Maddox Trujillo, both guys who were, I mean, obviously Trujillo is going to be a guy that's untested, being an undrafted rookie. Spencer Schrader, only 5 kicks in the NFL last season, made all 5 of them, so he was perfect on that. But still a really low sample size. So yeah, I mean, these are just a battle of 2 really inexperienced players at a position that a lot of times you're going to need some clutch performances from to come out with a W.
Yeah. So ladies and gentlemen, the reason Matt Gay was let go by the Colts was because of his struggles from 50 plus yards. So fun fact, it absolutely shocked me to learn this, but so Matt Gay played 6 years in the NFL. This dude has made 28 out of 45 50-yard field goals in 6 years. Okay, that equates, let's see, 28 divided by 45 is 62.2%. All right, he was bad last year. He was 3 for 9. But Adam Vinatieri, 45 made 50-plus yard field goals in 24 years. Matt Gay's played a fourth of that. He's only 17 made field goals of 50-plus behind. Fun stuff here. Adam Vinatieri's career percentage for 50-plus yard field goals is 62.5%. Okay, so my point, am I saying Matt Gay is Adam Vinny? Absolutely not. But I'm saying that it's not easy for kickers to make 50-plus yard field goals. But Matt Gay was perfect inside of 50 yards. So all I have to say, Noah, is that Spencer Schrader better damn well win that. He better win that competition because there's something, and you heard Ballard talk about Spencer Schrader. They love the kid. But, man, that he's gonna have, we already mentioned this, he's gonna have so much pressure on him to win games for the Colts because they do not have an offense like the Chiefs, like the Bills, like the Eagles, where you can just smash your opponents, win by 10, 14, 17, 21 points. No. The Colts are going to be in a lot of these situations where it's 24-24, 24-21, or situations where it's like, 27 to 25 for some weird reason, where his leg is going to either tie the game, win the game, or it's going to potentially come down to like that Gardner Minshew pass to Tyler Goodson, where it's week 18, you have to win it and you're in, and it's going to be on his leg. What are your right out of the box, what are your thoughts on that kind of confidence in a guy who's
Yeah.
barely shown anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does come down to Patrick just hit it in the chat right before you threw it over to me, but I think their confidence, someone beyond 50 yards, and I think the ball just comes a little bit different off of Spencer Schrader's foot than it did a guy like Matt Gay, despite you mentioned 63% overall in his career from 50 plus. I think they feel a little bit more confident in Spencer Schrader's ability to kick it deep, and maybe that is an indictment on how they feel about the offense and their ability to move the ball and just how confident they are about being able to move it consistently into the red zone with the and maybe that's good to have internally is a realistic self-evaluation of yourself and realizing you're in a situation with two quarterbacks who are basically unproven and kind of the success that your offense is going to have is a variable. You're not really solid in what you're going to look like, and maybe you do end up being able to drive consistently into the red zone, and that becomes a non-issue. But better safe than sorry here, and have somebody who has a little bit more kick power, a little bit more oomph in the leg, like Spencer Schrader does. Not sure about Maddox Trujillo if he has that. We'll kind of see that battle play out in camp if he has the leg to kind of be consistent from that kind of distance as well. But I think, yeah, if you're making a move away from Matt Gay into a guy like Spencer Schrader, that's probably what they're looking for out of the kicker position at this point.
That's a lot. That's a big swing. So we'll see if that works out. But Patrick did, before we wrap up the show, we do have to get to Patrick's comment because we're not hosts if we don't get to a super chat. Patrick Rice says, I know I got here a little late, but did we not talk about defensive tackle backups for camp battles? In terms of depth, I think defensive tackle is just as, if not worse, than linebacker. So we'll go ahead and address that while we can. So you've obviously got Defoe and Grover. Then you've got, at least for right defensive tackle on our lads, you've got Adetomiwa Adebawore, Eric Johnson II. Then on the left side, you've got Neville Gallimore and rookie Tim Smith. And you do have, Devontae Davis too. Adetomiwa Adebawore, incredibly athletic, has shown precious little. Eric Johnson II is a guy that is literally going to be a dude who's just going to bounce around the league. And I think the Colts have enough that they know about him, that they're comfortable with him at least. Neville Gallimore, he showed some flashes in the playoffs with the Rams. Other than that, man, he's really not much. And then Tim Smith is a rookie who was drafted in the 6th round. So out of those 4 names, who do you think are going to be the prominent 2 guys that are going to become the backups and have big roles, by the way, that Taven Bryan and Raekwon Davis just couldn't fill last year?
Yeah, Patrick, we did have this on the docket. We had an honorable mention section, but as always, we went a little bit long on everything else. And depth defensive tackle is definitely one we were going to hit there on that list. I mean, it's important, depth defensive tackle. Defensive tackle 3, you're talking about comparing that to linebacker. I mean, if you've got linebacker 1 and 2 healthy in Zaire Franklin and Jalen Carlisle, your linebacker 3 probably shouldn't see the field that often, more than 15, 20% of the snaps in any given game. Whereas defensive tackle 3, even if you have DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart who are healthy throughout the entire season, which is a major if, given their age, their injury histories, you're still looking at guys who are going to rotate in a significant portion of the snaps throughout a game. So, yeah, definitely an important position is defensive tackle 3, even defensive tackle 4. And while I do think the depth is a little bit more healthy than it is at linebacker with guys like Neville Gallimore, Eric Johnson, I think someone you can rely on. Adetomiwa Adeboware's maybe got that upside. I think these are better players than guys like Joe Bacci, Segun Alubi, but they're playing way more prominent roles than you're asking Joe Bacci and Segun Alubi to play, which worries me a little bit. Neville Gallimore, I hope they use him correctly like they didn't with Taven Bryan in the past. I hope he's able to stay at that 3-tech position and not bump inside and just gap two-man gap every time and try to hold his own, because I don't think he's that type of player. He's going to be more of a penetrating type of player. Eric Johnson, Tim Smith, these are kind of your run defender guys. Those 2 names that I think you're throwing out, I think we talked about it. Adetomiwa Adebawore is a name you throw out there, but also a guy I wouldn't be surprised if he gets cut or moved on at the deadline, because he doesn't necessarily fit this scheme. He wasn't drafted here when they had the Lou Anarumo scheme here on defense. Maybe he's just not the fit that they were hoping him to be. His production hasn't come along like they had hoped. So, yeah, the 2 names I'm looking at are Neville Gallimore, and I think Eric Johnson II is probably the favorite to take that backup nose tackle spot over Tim Smith, despite Tim Smith being the most recent draft pick.
Man, we got a lot to watch at training camp. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. This is our last podcast before training camp. So when Thursday comes around, and yes, Teresa, we will be here on Thursday. We're going to be giving you guys everything that's happened in the first 2 days of training camp, and fully prepare yourselves. Put on the seat belts and grab your popcorn for what will be an absolutely dramatic quarterback battle that no one's going to shut up about, including this channel right here. But yes, if you liked what you saw today, go and like the Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook. Follow Indianapolis Colts on SI, and on X we are at Colts _SI. Do not forget to subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle on YouTube. Click your bell to turn on all the notifications, because there's going to be stuff that's going to happen during the offseason, preseason, regular season that you're not going to want to miss. And we're going to respond to the news if it happens. Want to listen to the Horseshoe Huddle podcast? Fantastic news. Subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, wherever else you listen to podcasts. We are everywhere, and we will always be bringing the coverage. So, guys, prepare yourselves for an incredibly critical offseason ahead for the Colts. Training camp starts on Wednesday, and we will be bringing you all the coverage on Thursday. So until then, enjoy your week, and we will see you all here again in a couple days in the evening. So take care, and we'll talk then about Colts football.